talking about fractions. Fractions is always a very scary word. And really, honestly, all grade levels. Kids just really think that fractions are horrible. And I think that's just because they're brand new. They're not whole numbers, so they're always kind of weird. And there's just it's a new thing, it's a new idea, and it's kind of an kind of an abstract way of thinking, which basically means you got to really think about it instead of just writing it on a piece of paper. So let me show you a couple of tips for fractions that might make it a little bit easier. Fraction basically just means a part to a whole. Okay, it's how we express a number that's not a whole number. For instance, if you have a Snickers bar, let's say you have a candy bar, and let's say you have a little brother, and Mama tells you to share, but Mama says, well, you're bigger, so you can have a bigger piece, and you want to make sure that the pieces are cut up equally. So one thing that you could do is you could use your knowledge of fractions to figure this out. So if I cut that candy bar into 4 separate pieces, that makes 1/4 size pieces because I made 4 pieces. And if you can have 3 and little brother can have 1, that means that you would be able to get 1, 2, 3/4, and little brother, old Timmy, he can only have the 1/4. So his fraction would be the 1/4. So it's not that they're hard, it's just that it's a little different than what you're used to doing. So let me go back and show you these pictures that I just showed up here, these drawings. I did a circle and I did a rectangle. And let me show you how to divide these things. And a lot of times, pictures do help. But when you do pictures, you just got to be kind of careful because you don't want their pieces to be, different sizes. It helps if they're all the same size, which is kind of hard to do sometimes. So right now I have a 1 hole. Okay, this is a 1 hole rectangle box that could literally represent anything. It could be a candy bar, it could be, a brick, it could be a collection of something. And let's say I want to cut this up into 1/8. Okay, so if I want to cut this into 1/8, I need to try to cut this hole into 8 separate pieces, but they need to all be the same size. So a good way to do rectangles is to always come right down the middle. And we've got 4 pieces now, and then we can just split these right down again. And that gives us 8 total pieces. So inside this rectangle, we have 1/8. So this is 1/8, this is 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, and 1/8. So how do you make a fraction out of that? Well, I can just make up something. So I could say, all right, so if I have 8/8, okay, in which 8/8 is going to be your 1 whole, and let's say that I gave 6 of these away to my buddy. So 1's gone, 2's gone, 3's gone, 4's gone, 5's gone, 6 is gone. Let's say I lost those. So we'll write that right there. Let's say these were lost. Okay. So what I can do is I can take my original number. My original number was 8/8. Okay. Oops, hold on. I don't want to do equal. There we go. Subtract. So I take my 8/8, and remember we just lost 6/8. We lost 6 of them. Okay. And when you do subtracting or adding, you only subtract or add the top numbers. Those are your numerators. You do not subtract or add the bottoms, which are the denominators. So I only do 8 minus 6, which is 2, but my denominators stay the same because these actually tell you what it is, not how many, it's what. So these are 8ths. So if you look up here, I still had 2/8 left if I lost those other 6. So my answer to that problem is going to be either 2/8. Okay, and let's look at this circle. Let me do another circle on here because I ran out of room. Let me draw you another circle. Okay, so if I have a circle, and let's say I want to cut this into fourths. Okay, we'll slice it right down the middles, try to make a perpendicular 90-degree angle right there in the middles. So if I slice any whole shape into 4 pieces, you just made fourths. Always with circles, we always go back and think about pizza because that just kind of makes sense. Okay, so imagine that a pizza and it's got 4 huge slices in it. So if I made a math problem out of that, I could say, you know, if I ate 3 pieces, what's left? Okay, well, it's pretty obvious from the picture, but as a math equation, it would look like this. I started with 4/4, which was my 1 whole. Okay, and I'm going to put that over there just so you can remember that that's the 1 whole. But it's 4/4. Okay, just as a reminder. All right, I'll get rid of that because we don't really need that. But you do know that the 4/4 is your 1 whole originally, and we lost 3 of them. We ate them, so they're gone. And remember that you only add or subtract the tops, the numerators. So 4 minus 3 is 1. My denominators stay the same because they are fourths. So I can't, you know, subtract 4 minus 4 and say that's 0 because that wouldn't work because now I have, you know, 1 piece left of nothing. So that doesn't even make sense. So our denominators do not change for this problem. Our 4s stay the same, and that 4, that 1/4, goes back to this piece right here that was still left. Okay, so that's why he's still there. Another thing with fractions too is sometimes you'll see more than one. For instance, if I was adding, let's try adding this time. Let's say I gave you 3/8 plus 2/8 plus 4/8. Okay, so 3 and 2 and 4, they're all 8s. That's what they are, so the 8s stay the same, okay, because they don't change what they are. Now, the tops might be, you know, it might be bigger than 8, and that's okay. But the 8s are what they are, so they don't change. So 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. So this is kind of weird because we have a number on top that's bigger than the number on the bottom. Well, when that happens, we call this an improper fraction. Okay, it's an improper fraction. Proper means, you know, Timmy, that's the way you're supposed to act, nice and proper. It's the correct way. So a fraction is supposed to be where the top number is always less than the bottom number. But sometimes we have an improper fraction like this. So we can't leave it like that. So we have to figure out what to do because this 9 just looks strange because it's bigger than my bottom. So there's a lot of ways to do this. There's 2 ways that are my favorite though. One way is to think about it like this. If I had 9 of these 8s, okay, let me draw out 9 of them. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I had 9 of those, and they are indeed 8ths, it would take 8 to make a 1 whole. Okay? So I know right there that that's 1 whole. Okay? And then my leftovers, I have this little guy right here left over. So 1 and 1/8 would be my answer. There's another way you can do this too. Let me show you that way. You might like that even better. I call this top in the box. Okay, that's what I do. I call it top in the box because our top's kind of weird looking, so he looks kind of strange. So here's my top number, so I put him in the box, meaning a division box, and I divide by my other number. I know that 8 goes into 9 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. When I subtract, I get 1. So what I have now is I have a remainder of 1. So my remainder is 1. I had 1 left over, and these guys are eighths. So if you think about it, we touch the 1, and then we look at the 8. So 1 first, and then the 8 gives me that same 1 1/8. So it's just another way to do it, but anyway is fine. Pictures are always great. You know, this is called doing the Texas on it. Actually, no, I'll show you the Texas later. Let me show you that right now. So to take the Texas, this is something I made up, by the way. You take your 1 1/8, and we live in Texas, so I put a T and an X. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to give me that 9/8 again. So I can do 1 times 8 to get 8, plus the 1 to get 9. And remember, my bottoms never change. So that is my 9/8 right there, because you always multiply before you add in the order of operations. So, you know, it's another practice. I'll have another video on doing nothing but improper fractions and doing the Texas for mixed numbers, but I hope that kind of helped with the fractions as far as adding and subtracting. Main thing is you never want to start messing with the bottom. It's always the tops that get added and subtracted. I appreciate you watching. See you next time.